Hello, welcome back to the GM's Guide. I'm your host, Dan Felder, your kind and merciful GM. As always, if you love this podcast, please give it a 5-star review on iTunes or send it to your friends. It only takes a minute and it's a great way to show your support. I'm spending a lot longer than a minute recording these after all. But enough of that. Today we are going to be talking about one of the most beloved and be-hated literary devices and how to harness its power for good in your games. Yes, today we're talking about plot twists and how to do them. I say this about a lot of things, I would say, but plot twists really are a dynamite substance when it comes to story structure. They're one of the most powerful tools at your disposal. Handled well, you get jaw-dropping reactions that blaze in the minds of your players for years to come. Handled poorly, though, and they turn you into a laughingstock. You want an example? M. Night Shyamalan. The guy loves his plot twists. His early work was full of them, and they were great, and they helped make him a star. Then he really messed up a lot of them in a row, and it turned him into one of Hollywood's favorite punchlines. That's the power of plot twists. You start off with them well, you're hailed as the next Spielberg. You mess them up, you turn into, current M. Night Shyamalan. But he seems to be making something of a comeback with a very well-handled plot twist in The Visit. Anyway, though, I'm going to be using a lot of plot twists in Raven Shadow, so I wanted to take some time to explain how they work and how you can do them well. There are several rules of... A plot twist is a complicated literary device, and so there are several things you have to do in order to execute them well, and I'm going to go through all of them. Let's get started. First, what is a plot twist? Now, like any popular term, it's been used in a lot of imprecise ways over the years, and that makes life really hard for writers and people wanting to learn how to write. So here's how I define the term. A plot twist, and again, this is my definition, so it might be a lot more specific than a broad definition you're familiar with. So when I'm talking about plot twists, I'm talking about this. A plot twist is when the audience discovers that they were wrong about something. Again, a plot twist is when the audience discovers that they were wrong about something. The audience believed something was true, and we reveal that they were wrong. Maybe you thought someone was a friend, and they were actually working for the enemy all along, a betrayal plot twist. Maybe your whole adventure was actually a dream, a bad plot twist, but still a plot twist. Maybe Darth Vader is actually your father, very good plot twist. These are all examples of plot twists. Just please don't use the dream one unless you have a very good reason, and we'll talk about why. So anyway, we have our definition for a plot twist. The audience believes something, and we reveal that they were wrong. Our brains react very powerfully to hearing that we're wrong about something, and even more powerfully when we learn we're wrong about something for real, not just hear it. People either drop their jaws and say, "You're blowing my mind," or else they try and defend their current view of reality. It's so powerful, our brains actually perceive the new information as a threat. The powerhouse intellectual leap then pairs with our surprise at the new information, which triggers all our normal reactions to surprise. I mentioned way back in the earliest episodes of this podcast that surprising your players is the best way to make something memorable. So, we take all the powerful elements of surprise and we pair it with the powerful fight or flight response triggered when we present information that says, your view of reality is wrong. Twist those two things together, and that is the amazing power of a plot twist. So, how do you write a good plot twist? What will make your players go, wow? Here are the 5 rules of writing good plot twists. The first rule is that you need to create the initial belief that you're going to disturb later. If I tell you that they recently found human remains, including full skeletons, buried for decades in a man's cellar, that's creepy, but it's just new information. It doesn't displace old information, which is what creates the sense of having your mind blown or being rocked back and reeling from the information. New information is just a factoid. It's boring. You get it in class. Disruptive information, changing the way you view reality, saying that one of your previous views that you accepted as true was wrong, that is what rocks you back. Now, when I tell you, and this is true, that the man's house who they found the skeletons in was Benjamin Franklin's, suddenly you have a lot more to think about. Benjamin Franklin is held up in American culture as a grandfatherly figure among the revered founding fathers of the nation. The idea of him being a serial killer clashes heavily with most people's beliefs about him. Now, to be clear, these remains, which were really there, but they were almost certainly obtained from fellow scientists studying human anatomy. They don't actually imply Benjamin Franklin was a serial killer. But still, it makes for a quite twisty headline, doesn't it? Now, this means you have to very carefully trick your audience into believing incorrect information without being perceived as an unreliable narrator. Discussion of unreliable narrators is a whole other thing. But that's not what we're dealing with here. You need to trick your audience into believing incorrect information without actually telling them a lie. Now, a character in this world can tell them a lie, but you as the dungeon master should not lie to your players. Everything you say should always be true from a certain point of view. Now, a friendly character that suddenly attacks you is a betrayal. It's Shakespearean in power. Contrast this to a random guy on the street attacking you or being attacked by a long-hated enemy. These aren't nearly as powerful. They're the stuff of random encounters in dungeons and brainless Hollywood action sequences. Creating the incorrect assumption that the character is on your side in the first place, that's required if you want the twist to actually twist something. Otherwise, it's not twisting the player's perception of the game's reality. It's just new information. So remember, make sure to fairly trick your players into believing the incorrect information. It's very important that you don't, at least in the role of your omniscient, place as the dungeon master or the GM, lie to them. Like usual, the original Star Wars trilogy handles things very well. Luke believes his father is dead. This is why he lives with his aunt and uncle. Obi-Wan tells Luke that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered his father. This is all true from a certain point of view. As such, the audience believes that this is a revenge story about Luke slaying his father's murderer. This is much more effective than if Darth Vader was presented as some unknown mysterious figure that no one claims to know the identity of. People would know then that they don't know the answer to Darth Vader's identity. This is the crucial point. We believe we do know his identity, at least to an extent. We believe that we do know what happened to Luke's father explicitly. The plot twist brilliantly disrupts both these false beliefs and twists them together. And it only works because of how Obi-Wan set up the false belief. The second rule is that the twist must change something when it's revealed. Even if it just brings new significance to the protagonist's actions, such as a fighter pilot learning that the target they've been given wasn't military after all, and they just unknowingly bombed an innocent village thinking that it was a military target, the plot twist must change something about the nature of the protagonist's journey when it's revealed. It needs to either change how we feel about their journey, or it needs to change the obstacles or allies that they're dealing with. So here's an example. Let's say that I led you to believe that my mad wizard trying to turn the world's dragons into an army under his command grew up on a potato farm. A crazy wizard trying to enslave the world's dragons, and he grew up on a potato farm. Okay. Later I revealed that he actually grew up on a carrot farm. Unless this adventure has a lot to do with very specific vegetables, this twist is not meaningful. It doesn't change anything about what the adventurers are trying to do, doesn't significantly alter their view of the villain, one type of vegetable farm probably the same as another. On the other hand, though, if the villain was revealed to have grown up as a slave to a dragon, well, at least we'd gain a little bit of understanding into why he might be trying to enslave dragons himself. So at least that twist, that surprise, would change something, even if just a little bit. It's not a great plot twist, but it's something that would have given us more insight into his character, that would have made his actions up to this point make more sense, and be, oh, okay, he's getting revenge. Maybe we could do something with that. Not a great plot twist, but it's a good example of the twist being more meaningful than something else. Potato farm to carrot farm doesn't change anything about this adventure. Random farmer into enslaved by dragon, suddenly we understand something more about the villain's actions. That does change something. That story background is meaningful. Now, the Star Wars reveal with Darth Vader being Luke's father is meaningful to the max. Luke's struggle in episodes 5 and 6 are a battle against his inner demons that manifest through lightsaber fights and Jedi training. We're all wondering if Luke will fall to the dark side of the Force. Luke's resolve is strengthened by his trust in his mentors and his rejection of the man who he believes killed his father. Revealing the truth, however, that simultaneously undermines Luke's trust in his mentors, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, and it removes his biggest personal vendetta against Darth Vader. You killed my father. No, I am your father. I trust Luke and Yoda to guide me along the right path. They're lying to you. That is incredibly effective. And it also establishes a chilling precedent. Luke has been saying since Tatooine that he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. He wants to become a Jedi like his father. Suddenly, that road has taken an unexpected twist. His father didn't die heroically in battle. He became the villain he's trying to resist. Following in his father's footsteps is the road that everybody is afraid of. Now, the third rule is that the plot twist must be post-dictable. Not predictable, post-dictable. When something is predictable, you see it coming before it happens. When something is post-dictable, yes, I know this isn't a real word, but it's very effective for understanding this, you realize that after it happens, you could have seen it coming. You could have seen it coming. It makes you go, oh, that makes so much sense. See? Not before, post, after. Post-dictable. It's that feeling you get when you suddenly realize the significance of lots of little details and everything just clicks into place. It's a huge mental rush. It also encourages the audience to pay attention in the future because you've established that clues to important secrets are laid out in their adventures because now they see all the clues that you placed about this reveal. The best way to get people to look for cool secrets is to establish that at least some are there in the first place. We do this in video games all the time. We trick the player into finding a few secrets, and then we make them realize, oh my god, there must be lots of secrets everywhere. We sort of breadcrumb trail, lead them to the first one. We put a pot next to a fake wall. They swing their sword, they break the pot, they also hit the fake wall. It reveals that there's a secret passageway. Suddenly, we've tricked them into finding at least one secret, so now they know to look for more. And maybe there aren't any, but they're looking. It's like, so in the purposes of an RPG, that can be very, very effective. Because in a video game, you might go around hitting a lot of false walls and being frustrated, but in an RPG, it means you're paying more attention to everything, looking for the next clue. It's like sprinkling gold dust over a mine. People see some gold and think, hey, maybe there's more we haven't found yet. A good way to set up a post-dictable plot twist is to give the players actions and information that seems to make sense in one context, but once the twist is revealed, it makes them see that the information in a whole new light. For example, Yoda is very reluctant to train Luke Skywalker at first. If you're layering the post-dictable clues for the big Darth Vader plot twist, you'll need to disguise this information. Yoda would naturally be reluctant to train Luke because Luke's Darth Vader's son. But otherwise, why would he be reluctant? After all, we know that we're already in kind of a worst-case scenario. The Empire won. The Jedi are nearly extinct. What do we got to lose? We need a new gifted noble warrior. We ended up calling episode 4 retroactively A New Hope. Luke's our new hope. Luke's our guy. But, as Darth Vader's son, Yoda would still be immensely reluctant to train him. So, how do you disguise this information? You make it look like Yoda is reluctant to train Luke for some other reason. In the case of episode 5, this was done by Yoda testing Luke's patience. He pretends to be, when Luke first meets him, a crazed, swamp-dwelling goofball, and intentionally moves to frustrate Luke, to see how Luke acts when he's the more powerful figure being annoyed by the little folk around him. When Luke loses his patience, Yoda announces that he won't train Luke. Luke has failed. Yoda has to be convinced afterwards, against his initial judgment, to take Luke on as an apprentice. So now all of his reluctance seemingly stems from Luke's initial failure of this first test. It makes total sense. Yoda is reluctant to take you on because you failed his Jedi test. However, he's actually reluctant for an entirely different reason. It's just disguised within the context of the first test. If Luke had been out to ask Yoda's help directly and Yoda had said, hey, yeah, I'm Yoda, not played any games, but no, I don't want to train you, that would have made us really wonder why. But by hiding it in within the first failed test, we assume he doesn't want to train him for that reason. In reality, he doesn't want to train him because he knows who his father is. There are lots of these post-dictable clues planted over the course of episodes 4 and 5. And that's what makes the Luke, I'm your father twist so satisfying. Your mind races back across 2 whole movies and a bunch of things suddenly snap into place. Another common technique is to hide identities in names. Jim Butcher, a truly brilliant fantasy author, read his stuff now, does this in both his major series. I won't mention exactly what he did because I hope you enjoyed the books yourselves, but if you ever read them, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, well, here's my public service announcement. Go read Codex Alera. Go read the Dresden Files. They're incredible. Give the Dresden Files a little bit of slack. At first you'll think they're just good, but they become amazing. He wrote the first books while he was in college, and he became an amazing writer a little bit after that. So, here's an example from my own adventures. I had decided that the talking cat familiar of one of my players, again, the talking cat familiar, she could talk, and the player had established to me already that she could talk before he met her. She became his familiar after the fact, after they were already friends. I decided that she would be the secret former leader of the Eyes of Tiamat, my setting's Illuminati. She had been betrayed and forced out by the campaign villain, who was currently ruling the Eyes of Tiamat, and she was hiding against him, away from him, in the guise of a cat, an unobtrusive familiar to a low-level wizard that she saw potential in. Now, my player had named his cat Rishi, so I decided to name the former legendary leader Narishani. Rishi, Narishani. It sounds like a nickname, doesn't it? And so when players would eventually realize who Narishani actually was, they go, Rishi! How did we not see that? Rishi, it's right inside Narishani. It was hidden in plain sight. That's what I'm talking about. This worked very well. I made sure to emphasize the name of the former leader whenever I could. And I also did some more stuff. For example, I had Rishi vanish from time to time during the course of the adventure. And when she came back, she'd always claim she'd seen a butterfly or something that she just had to chase. The players assumed I was making cat jokes, but when the reveal came, they realized she must be off doing some sort of espionage or checking in with old contacts during those absences. I even had her step up when the party stumbled during certain diplomatic situations. She'd weave a clever web of words and would have a great effect on the NPCs, or else she'd spot ulterior motives that not immediately visible to the players, and they started trusting her impulses and instincts of people more than their own. Now, all this was played off as something of a joke. Hey, wizard, your cat's smarter than you. But when the reveal came, all those plants suddenly made sense. That's how you lay satisfying post-dictable clues. Disguise the information as something else. Then, when the reveal comes, the hindsight rips those disguises away. It works so well. Okay, the fourth rule. The twist must be sensible. This sounds really obvious, I'm not going to dwell on it, but it needs to be stated. The story needs to make just as much sense without the twist as it does with the twist. Again, the story needs to make just as much sense without the twist as it does with the twist. If either one is faulty, either your players know something is up before the twist, or the twist itself makes a story seem stupid. Returning to the Rishi example, her disappearance did make sense as her chasing butterflies. She's a cat. But it also makes sense when we explain it that an intelligent and politically savvy character that is in hiding could be running off to work contacts behind the scenes. She could be an actual cat, or she could be someone who transformed herself into a cat to hide. Both things make sense in the fantasy setting that I created. However, when a character betrays another for seemingly no reason, the audience protests that they're acting out of character. It simply does not make sense that this character would behave this way. A good example is in the Sherlock BBC series, when a woman hires Sherlock to investigate her husband's encounters with a ghostly woman. The plot twist, it was the wife who hired Sherlock being the ghost all along. This makes no sense. Quite sensibly, Sherlock protests, but why would she hire me to investigate if she was the one doing the crime? And in fact, this itself is a plot point, because he realizes that he must be in some sort of hallucination or dream because reality is making no sense right now. And just as he rejects his reality, so will players assume that your reality must not be real or consistent because your reality makes no sense. And they end up writing the movie off, or the adventure, or the book, and just thinking that was stupid, which is what happened to M. Night Shyamalan's career. Okay, the fifth And final rule is possibly the highest level of mistake. Lots of good adventure designers get points 1 through 4 down, only to fail here. Only to fail here. I've messed this up. My friends have messed this up. Great writers mess this up continually. Please don't mess this up. Anyway, here's the rule. The plot twist must make the story better, not worse. Again, the plot twist must make the story better, not worse. Just because a plot twist is surprising, meaningful, post-predictable, and sensible doesn't mean that it makes the story better. Twisting the plot is like murdering a part of your setting in the player's minds. It's replacing a part of their reality with something new. It's like getting a stepmother. Just like killing a beloved character should only be done when it creates more stories than it destroys, so should a plot twist only be done when it makes the story better, not worse. I'm going to rattle off some examples, and I'll start with one of my own. After watching a huge amount of Leverage, which I did for a long time before planning a D&D session because the show was so relevant to a DM mentality, really, watching Leverage pre-D&D planning is a good idea. I decided I'd set my players up against a group of con men. Leverage is about con men. My con men group brilliantly led the players upon an intriguing false adventure, tricking them into thinking that there was a vault of treasure being gathered by a Cthulhu-esque cult who are going to use the perfect gemstones that they had in a ritual to summon an elder god. The adventure was frankly one of my very best, starting with a seemingly mentally broken man in ragged clothing shuffling into the tavern where the players were sitting. And as he shuffles in, you hear a clink, 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 as rubies the size of your thumb are slowly spilling out of a hole in his ragged pocket, thunking onto the tavern's floor as he walks. He doesn't seem to take any notice of it. As the ragged man sits down aimlessly in a corner, staring at nothing, the heroes start to get interested, and so does the rest of the tavern. So the heroes end up defending him from muggers who are trying to steal his rubies, and immediately the players are interested. This is a ragged man who has nothing, clearly like a beggar, but he's got huge piles of wealth. Rubies are falling out of holes in his pocket, and he doesn't seem to notice or care. What the heck is going on? Where does someone like him get these rubies? Why is he mentally scarred? What's happening here? And so they became very curious and, of course, wanted to talk to him. So what happens is he can barely speak. He points them to a friend he's also been with. He manages to get them, and that guy's so deranged that they have to try a lot of stuff to calm him down. And his caretaker is, asking them for favors and resources in order to get him to help them. Because trying to ward them off in the first place, but it's a chance for them to make some money, etc. So their deranged words lead them to a place filled with symbols to the god of madness. And they start to realize, oh my god, we're dealing with something big here, something bad. And so on, and so on, and so on. And so the con men in various roles manage to milk the high-level players for money every step along the way. They sell them tools to fight the Cthulhu cult. They sell them tools to get into locked doors. They hold out for bribes for information. And they just milk them of thousands and thousands of gold as they drop hints about the treasure that they're about to get and the important forces of darkness that they have to defeat. And the ultimate reveal is when the heroes storm the locked basement with a magical key that they bought from the con men, not knowing they're con men yet, thinking it's a wizard who used to run the place before he was forced out by the cult. And they finally get in, ready to fight some sort of dark god and high priests of an evil Cthulhu-esque cult. And inside they find only an empty room and a mocking letter making fun of them, and a painting of a troll, because they've been trolled. Con movies are awesome, and stealing the player's stuff is a great way to get them to hate you. I've had villains outwit the players many times before, and it's the bedrock of perhaps my most beloved and behated villain ever, Torrin Silverfern. I was sure this plot twist was going to be amazing, and the rest of the adventure was great already. And then when it happened, the players just blinked. Wow, they said. Not in wonder, just a quiet, flat wow. They got us, I guess. The whole adventure The whole adventure, they were leaning forward in their seats, hanging on every word. I had them every step of the way. It was amazing. Then at the big twist at the end, all the wind just out of their sails. I tried it with another group, got the same result. Why? In hindsight, it's post-dictable. They'd thought they'd been on a mysterious, chilling, intriguing adventure with a glorious treasure that slowly escalated as they came to believe they were dealing with a Cthulhu cult on the verge of unleashing a cosmic horror right outside their favorite town. They'd shown up to the final battle with the cultists, and then nothing. The twist had made the adventure so much less cool. They weren't dealing with elder gods and mad priests and glorious treasures. They were dealing with grifters and conmen, and the room was empty. The whole thing was fake. That is so much less cool. It had made a fascinating, creepy adventure a meaningless act to get their money. They barely even had emotion left to be mad at the conmen for tricking them, when I was counting on their anger to drive them to chase the guys over for the next adventure. It was a disaster. The core idea was good, but I made the fake adventure way too cool. Next time I try this, I'm actually going to make the conmen reveal cooler than the fake adventure they thought they were on. When you set out to fight bandits, and you realize you're actually fighting a mutant monster controlling the villagers and forcing them to act like bandits, that's cool. When you set out to fight a mutant monster and realize it's just bandits playing pretend, that's disappointing. Another good example comes from a recent adventure I was discussing with somebody. We had the idea that the group would go into a swamp and deal with a freaky group of monsters. And my co-designer suggested that the monsters are not actually scary. There's a plot twist. They just want to play, but they're terrorizing people because they're scary monsters and they assume that they want to kill them, but in reality they just want to play. Wouldn't that be an interesting plot twist? I pointed out this was making the same mistake I just talked about. You show up ready to deal with horrifying monsters and eventually you realize they just want to play. Now this happens early in the adventure as a prelude to something even cooler than the initial monsters that you thought you were dealing with. Well, that's fine. That's totally fine. If it's the ending plot twist, though, that's just disappointing. This is why so many horror plot twists hinge on people thinking that everything's happy and going to be fine at first, and then the seemingly nice villagers turn out to be monsters. You don't have many great movies with everyone thinking that they're monsters, and it turns out they're actually just nice villagers. In fact, Shyamalan made that exact same mistake in his movie The Village, where you think they're monsters at first, but spoiler alert for a bad movie, turns out the monsters are just villagers playing pretend. This is also why the infamous "it was all a dream" plot twist is so freaking unsatisfying. It says, no matter what the adventure was, I'm going to make it all matter less. The dream twist makes everything that happened less meaningful, and also less bound to logic. It's very hard for us to feel the story was better because it was a dream than otherwise. It's not impossible, there are exceptions. Normally it's terrible. William Goldman said the secret to writing great endings was to give the audience exactly what they want, but not in the way they expect. Give the audience exactly what they want, just not in the way they expect. Despite him not always following his own advice, the advice itself is golden. It also applies to beginnings, by the way, and middles, and plot twists wherever they happen to happen in the story. Give the audience exactly what they want, but not in the way they expect. Always try to figure out a way to do this. What happens in the story needs to be something the audience wants to happen, but it should also surprise and delight them in how it happens. Give the audience what they want, just not in the way they expect. And these twists that I've mentioned, with the swamp twist and with my own twist with the conmen, didn't do that. They did the opposite. Well, it wasn't what they expected, but it also really wasn't what they wanted. The twists made the story less cool. Jim Butcher, who I just praised endlessly earlier, well, not endlessly, briefly, but still, I could praise him endlessly. I could do a whole podcast series talking about all the brilliant stuff that was in his books. He made a terrible mistake, though, of exactly this nature in his extraordinary Dresden Files series. If you haven't read it yet, again, start. The first books are decent, but they were also written while he was in college. The series blossoms into one of the most wonderfully creative, character-rich examples of genre mastery and brilliant ideas I've seen anywhere. And if you ever thought paladins were dumb, the occasional side characters, the Knights of the Cross, alone will make you a believer. But despite all this brilliance, Butcher was basically setting up a super long plot twist that I'm going to spoil right now, because it's better knowing it's coming than to just wince your way through it when it happens. Basically, Butcher has a lot of characters act oddly and be evil, and eventually he explains it all with an evil mind-controlling parasite. The same kind of thing that DC used to excuse their terrible idea of Hal Jordan going insane and murdering the entire Green Lantern Corps when they wanted to start over with a new Lantern. Because that's awesome, right? Strip away our characters' choices and all their hidden motivations or moral ambiguity, just replace them with, an evil mind-controlling parasite made me do it. The Hal Jordan thing was terrible no matter what the excuse was, by the way. Literal character assassination. Anyway, though, it honestly feels like Butcher realized what a bad idea this turned out to be, because his incredible book Skin Game, which is possibly my favorite adventure book that there is, follows up the big reveal of the evil mind-controlling thing by basically pretending it never happened. I'm sure I'll have to address it at some point. It was made too big a deal, but it just doesn't even touch on it. It doesn't ruin the book series at all. You should still absolutely read the books. It just shows that even truly extraordinary writers mess this stuff up from time to time. One of the best things about the Dresden Files is the moral ambiguity and the path to darkness that is heavily a theme throughout the setting. Anybody can go evil if the right situation turns up, and it's about resisting that pull that makes the heroes heroes. And so creating someone that takes away their choice. The whole series is about choice. It's about will. The theme is woven bone deep into the series. And they say it a million times. And then to have some evil parasite take that choice away, and the villains were evil because some mind-controlling parasite made them do it. Not all of them, but some of them. That destroys the themes of the series and makes the villains less interesting in the process. So, bad idea. Now, a final example I want to give is in M. Night Shyamalan's movie, slightly obscure movie, Devil. This is a perfect example of a failed plot twist. It fails to work on most nearly every level. In this deservedly hated movie, a group of people are trapped on an elevator and the power is faulty. So every now and then the lights go off. Every time they come back on again, it's been revealed one of them has just been murdered. They have no idea who the assailant is in the elevator. And right from the beginning, we get a crazy security guard saying it's the devil causing this. He knows the signs of the devil's approach from his grandmother or something. It's not 1,000% clear. Starting with a suicide and the devil's presence causing toast to land butter side down. I'm not even kidding about that one. But yeah, the security guy says, okay, it's not a random serial killer. It's the devil doing this. So right off, we've got several problems. First, we've told right away the devil is at work. It's even in the title of the movie. So the fact that it is the devil striking and killing people, that can't be the plot twist. Instead, the plot twist is supposed to be based on who the devil is. This isn't really a plot twist, it's a whodunit. We know we don't know which of these people is the devil. It's not even clear that it has to be a person in the elevator. Couldn't the devil be working from afar? He's the devil, right? How reliable is Crazy Toast Guy as a source of supernatural information anyway? He's not even a priest or a ghostbuster. He's like an elevator operator or something. Now, Shyamalan creates the initial assumption that he's going to reveal to be false by having who the devil is in the elevator, be murdered. So it looks like the person is dead. So you assume, oh, it can't be that person because they're dead. Plot twist, ho-ho, they weren't actually dead. It was that person all along. So he takes a seemingly least threatening person, an old lady, and has her murdered, I think second in the order. So we assume she's dead, so she can't be the devil. Because that's the whole point of the movie. Narrowing down the people as they're killed one by one until the real traitor is revealed. Now, this isn't a terrible ground for an initial assumption, because the audience might assume, oh, she's dead, can't be her, she was one of the victims. But they're not going to necessarily leap to the devil could be pretending to be dead. So that's okay. However, it doesn't work because it undermines one of the other points. It makes the result feel less post-dictable. The process of elimination is the entire point of the movie's tension, and if it didn't actually eliminate the suspects, how are we supposed to know? It no longer feels post-dictable. The woman didn't act in any weird way that we now see clearly marked her as the devil with the benefit of hindsight, so the only information we really had to go on was that she was dead, and that's not reliable anymore. So yeah, not a satisfying plot twist. The twist also is not meaningful. It doesn't matter which of these particular people is the devil, and the old woman had no character development. Nothing about this twist changes anything. It's just, oh, yeah, the devil was trying to kill us, and I guess that was you, so you're not really a victim, you're just actually the devil. Okay, I'm still scared of you. Is the twist sensible? Barely, because the whole logic of how the devil is working seems absolutely bizarre in places, and it breaks a few of the rules that we've had implied, meaning that if you're dead, you weren't the devil. Finally, does the twist make the story better? No, it makes it worse. Not in any giant way, but just because the reveal falls entirely flat. Oh my god, it was the old woman all along means absolutely nothing, as I've said before. So our curiosity was the only thing keeping us here, and we were waiting for some sort of big reveal, and now it's gone, because instead of saying, oh, who are the last people remaining is it? Who are the last people remaining is it? Oh, and then it gets down to two of them. Which one of them's the devil? Which one of them's the devil? And then you think, oh, it's the old woman who is dead? Huh. Okay, because you've already mentally discounted her. So it's no longer a satisfying twist. Because you're all focused on the whodunit, which of these last two characters is the devil, and you basically get not at all what you were expecting, and so all your emotional investment into the characters, because she's already been eliminated very early, of the last chunk of time is just ripped away from you. Not satisfying at all. Makes it worse. It does not pay off our expectations. However, in the Nostalgia Critic's review of the film, he actually suggested something else. What if the crazy elevator operator was the devil? This is a much better twist. The superstitious elevator is the one who tells us the rules of how the devil is working. He's the one who first says, hey, the devil's here. He's the one making up the dumb rules about the toast falling butter side down, being a sign that the devil is near. He's the one freaking everyone out about the devil, and he's right about it. And he's the seemingly pathetic exposition character, the disguise, who knows a lot about this devil guy, doesn't he? And for him to actually be the devil shows him now that the whole story was he was playing as the active puppet master. This whole time, what we thought was that the devil was working among the murderers, we actually see that he was a step ahead of everybody and manipulating and puppet mastering the whole situation. He wasn't a tool of exposition. He was the devil. That's how he knows about the devil's work. And he's been messing with us all along. Much, much better. Our source of information has turned into the source of our fear. Fantastic. Now, it still wouldn't have been a good movie, but it would have been a much better twist. Okay, that's our show, folks. Now, once again, our 5 rules are: first, the initial assumption must be created. You need to create the false assumption before you can reveal that it's false. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. 2, the twist must be meaningful. If the twist does not change anything about the goals, tactics, obstacles, or significance of the protagonist's quest, then it's just a distraction. 3, the twist must be post-dictable. If the audience's mind, the audience's mind needs to race back through the setup and see all the clues with the benefit of hindsight. This is what creates that, wow, you just blew my mind sensation. 4, the twist must be sensible. If the twist does not make sense, it undermines the realism and believability of the adventure, and the audience rejects the twist as a dumb idea, rather than letting it change their view of the world. 5, the twist must make the adventure better and not worse. We just talked about that. So, as long as you follow these 5 points and scrutinize your plot twist against them carefully, you'll be able to use this powerful narrative dynamite tool for good rather than evil. I use many, many plot twists in Raven Shadow, and every one of them went off so well. I was just talking to one of my players earlier, telling him, hey, I'm doing a podcast episode on plot twists tonight. And he was saying, oh yeah, Raven Shadow had tons of those, because he's listening to the podcast now. And we reminisced, and we just went through like 17 of them that it had. And so as I lay them out, and as I show all the different steps, I mean, putting these pieces in place, layering the clues, keep these formula in mind. Keep it in mind, and you'll see me using it in action. And please, if you liked this podcast, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes or link it to your friends. It really helps spread the word, and it shows me that you care, which makes me want to spend more time recording these episodes more quickly. All right, anyway, that is all, folks, for real this time. I will see you on the next GM's Guide. Bye-bye.